Welcome back to our broadcast. The president's comments in the aftermath of Charlottesville have left his aides and allies in a tough spot and have given comfort and validation to the so-called alt-right, including white nationalists, as they heard some of their own wording. Imagine that coming out of the president's mouth in Trump Tower yesterday. The American Prospect tonight has published an interview, the first of two interviews we have to tell you about this evening, with Steve Bannon. This one was conducted by Robert Kuttner, who writes, quote, "I asked Bannon about the connection between his program of economic nationalism and the ugly white nationalism epitomized by the racist violence in Charlottesville and Trump's reluctance to condemn it. He dismissed the far right as irrelevant and sidestepped his own role in cultivating it. Ethno-nationalism, it's losers. It's a fringe element. I think the media plays it up too much, and we got to help crush it, help crush it more. These guys, are a collection of clowns," he added. "The Democrats," he said, "the longer they talk about identity politics, I got them. I want them to talk about racism every day. If the left is focused on race and identity and we go with economic nationalism, we can crush the Democrats." Let's talk about this tonight. Jonathan Swan is with us, national political reporter for the Axios news service, who has two new pieces out this evening: what Steve Bannon thinks about Charlottesville and Bannon's colleagues disturbed by interview with left-wing publication. A currently laughing Eugene Robinson is back with us as well. So, Jonathan, we're going to take these interviews in order. I mentioned there is another one. It's with the New York Times. Jeremy Peters of the New York Times is standing by to talk to us. But in this first one, tell the folks who haven't had the benefit of reading it, that quote was the tip of the iceberg. What else is in here? What else is in here about the military and North Korea?
So I should tell you that that piece that you quoted that I wrote this evening has just been updated because Steve Bannon has told associates that he actually didn't know he was being interviewed. He was calling up this person who wrote the piece about China, thinking that he was talking to a China ally, and for whatever reason did not say that it was off the record, and looks pretty bad. Now, it's actually an extraordinary interview. When I read it, I had a very strong feeling that Steve Bannon didn't know he was being interviewed, because he did a few things that he wouldn't normally do, even when he's in his blustery, I want to show you, how big my muscles are mode. He spoke like he was the president. And that is a really big sin in Trump world. He talked about things that he would do, people and staff that he would remove from the State Department. He undercut the president's policy on North Korea. He said there is no military option, that there was no way to solve this militarily, which is directly contradictory to Donald Trump's fairly bombastic rhetoric. And then he started trashing colleagues. He said he was in a war with Gary Cohn and the Goldman Sachs crew. We knew all of this stuff, but for him to say it to someone that he's never spoken to before, you're going to hear some people say that he's playing some kind of, I called it five-dimensional chess, that this is part of a devious strategy. I guarantee you it's not. It's just plain sloppiness.
I should point out, Kuttner, the writer, appeared on television tonight and said his word, "This is not Bambi," he said about Steve Bannon.
Sure,
and indicated this is a guy who ran Breitbart. He comes from our world, knows the lay of the land, would have known the import of a byline like Kuttner. So, Eugene, it gets better. On the record, our friend Jeremy Peters of the New York Times, who is among the guests waiting to come on later in the broadcast, also got Bannon on the phone. Here are his quotes. President Trump, by asking where does this all end, connects with the American people about their history, culture, and society, he said. The race identity politics of the left wants to say it's all racist, Mr. Bannon added. Just give me more. Tear down more statues. Say the revolution is coming. I can't get enough of it.
This is extraordinary. I mean, for just about those quotes, he's obviously playing race identity politics with white America and saying, you're under threat, you're under attack, your statues are being torn down, and you ought to have some feeling about Robert E. Lee that you may not even have, but you ought to have it because he's a white guy and his statue was coming down. So I think he's projecting there when he accuses others of playing race identity politics. But also, so far we've had the former now White House communications director and the guy who ran Breitbart, both getting on the phone with reporters.
Shocked that journalists are quoting them.
Shocked that they get quoted without saying, can we talk off the record? This is just extraordinary. It does speak to how eager people close to the president are to leak their version of events and their version of the Trump presidency to anybody who will listen.
Jonathan, if the stories are true that the president is feeling pressure to fire Steve Bannon, 2 points there. A, this will certainly give them air cover. But the second point is the president's reported reluctance because of what Bannon knows, his mouthpiece, and how dangerous he can be outside the White House is also contained in these quotes. When speaking, he speaks his mind.
Yes, but I think there's another wrinkle in all of this, and this is the challenge with covering the White House palace intrigue. You see blind quotes, anonymous quotes in publications. There was one in Reuters I saw, I think it was today, where it quoted a White House official saying that the president was scared and anxious to get rid of Steve Bannon because of the damage he could do on the outside. I mean, I don't know who gave that quote, but I'd be willing to bet my life savings it was one of Steve Bannon's enemies, because they know that the surest way to get Donald Trump fired up and firing Steve Bannon is for someone to question his masculinity, say that he's scared, that it's something that he wouldn't want to do. So I suspect that was a mischievous quote. But the truth is, yes, people are concerned about what Steve Bannon would do when he returns to the killing machine of Breitbart. And it is a killing machine. They pick in their targets. You see what they're doing at the moment to H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor. I guarantee you, if Steve Bannon gets fired from the White House, Breitbart will just go thermonuclear on this administration, and they will just go after people like Gary Cohn. They're already going after him, but I kind of think you ain't seen nothing yet.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.